Outside of family and school, the most important activity I was involved in between the ages of 12 and 16 was the Boy Scouts. I started out in the Cub Scouts. I mostly remember meeting at the Den Mother's house across the street from my school and working on small craft projects. At about age 11 or 12, I moved on to the Boy Scouts. Here I am standing on the brick planter in front of our house in what appears to be a brand new uniform. Boy Scout Troop 406 was sponsored by our church ward. We did all the usual Boy Scout stuff, learning some useful skills like first aid and some quickly forgotten skills like sending a message with semaphore flags. But the important thing was just getting together with a group of built-in friends for weekly meetings and occasional weekend campouts. Weekly meetings were sometimes replaced by a local outing, such as this trip to an indoor archery range. Sometimes you get a patch for attending an event, like the one in my left hand for Lake Arrowhead Scout Camp, but the main ones are the patches or pins on your left shirt pocket signifying rank, and the merit badges on your sash. You enter the Scouts as a tenderfoot and advance to second class and first class by studying the Boy Scout handbook, learning basic scouting skills like tying knots, as well as memorizing the Boy Scout law, oath, and motto. After you are a first-class scout, you start earning merit badges to advance to the next rank. 5 for a Star Scout, 11 for a Life Scout, and 21 for an Eagle Scout. The troop would periodically hold ceremonies to award the boys with the new ranks they had achieved. Earning a merit badge involves some studying and then putting what you learn to some practical use. When you are ready, you go to a community volunteer who has some knowledge of the subject matter. You show him your work and he gives you an oral exam on the subject. In some cases, like life-saving, you learn in a class setting and receive the badge after completing the course. A merit badge is not exactly a PhD, but you get an introduction to the subject and learn the basics. At a jamboree, multiple scout troops set up camps in a large open area. This gives the boys a chance to interact with other scouts and check out the camping skills of other troops. A Scoutorama is an indoor event where the troops set up a booth to show off the specialties of their troop. My dad borrowed a first aid dummy called Rasusi Annie, and we learned in our weekly meetings how to do CPR and mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Annie was a big hit at our Scoutorama booth. We even got our picture in a scouting publication. At another booth, we saw a troop that was building their own kayaks. We picked up on that and decided to build some of our own. Here's Cheryl and Gidget modeling one of our kayaks as it was being worked on in the backyard. And here's the grand christening and test launch of our new kayaks, red, white, and blue. Our troop went on quite a few weekend campouts in the desert and in the mountains. Here we are playing Capture the Flag. We even went to Guaymas, Mexico one time to do some snorkeling. One time we went up the Palm Springs Tram. These pictures were taken at Joshua Tree National Monument, now a national park. Turn a bunch of boys loose on a bunch of giant rocks. What could go wrong? Bob Pratt was our scoutmaster in the early days. When he became bishop of our ward, my dad took over as scoutmaster. If you wanted to transport a Boy Scout troop in the 1960s, you piled them in the back of a pickup truck, yelled at them to sit down, and took off down the road. This is Ian Snyder and I in a small cave high up in the rocks. Ian was unhappy with the troop he was in, so he switched to ours. He was the only scout in our troop who was not LDS. Getting up to that cave was not very easy or safe. One summer we went on a whitewater raft trip down the Green River from Moab, through the confluence with the Colorado, and on to a point just upstream of Lake Powell. As we headed into some major rapids, several of the more adventurous boys were in the front of the raft getting wet, while 3 of the less adventurous boys were sitting on the very back tube of the 33-foot raft. We crossed a giant wave. The raft flexed, the back of the raft flipped up, and the 3 boys in the back were catapulted high into the air and out into the river. At one point, we also got pretty seriously stuck on a rock. Each summer, we would spend a week at Lake Arrowhead Scout Camp. Each troop was assigned a campsite with multiple tents surrounding a common area for gathering, preparing meals, etc. Each tent housed 4 to 6 boys. Each morning the flag was raised in a brief ceremony, and each evening it was taken down and properly folded. One year there was a blue jay that would land and eat out of my hand. The white boxes contain our food supplies. We prepared our own meals and took care of ourselves and our camp. Here we are marching off to somewhere, perhaps to this demonstration of falconry by the camp counselors. We played some organized games, but there was plenty of free time, maybe to climb a very tall pine tree and look down, or just generally goof off. Mountain streams were safe to drink from, so we would just stick our whole face in and drink. We spent a fair amount of time just exploring the wilderness. During the day, we would divide up and receive instruction from camp counselors aimed at earning merit badges. There was a small lake at the camp where we received instruction in canoeing and rowing. That looks like me out there, practicing a technique called sculling, using one oar at the back of a rowboat. These two look like they need to watch where they're going. We could also paddle around in our own kayaks just for fun. There was a pool where we worked on swimming and life-saving merit badges. In life-saving class, one boy would thrash around in the middle of the pool yelling "scrambled eggs," while another boy would come to the rescue. Here we are at the archery range. The instructor at the rifle range was a former Marine drill sergeant. "You will not touch your weapon until instructed. Pick up your weapon, and with one round, lock and load." On the last day of camp, there was a competition between the troops. One of the events was tug of war. For a couple of years in a row, I won the event for swimming the farthest underwater in the pool. One of the events on the lake was a relay race with teams of 4 boys with paddles in a rowboat. Another event had teams of canoes with buckets. The objective was to sink the other canoe without getting sunk yourself. I was eventually awarded the rank of Eagle Scout. Here I am wearing my Eagle Scout pin with my Scoutmaster/Dad. Each year, the Los Angeles Boy Scout Council held a banquet for all the new Eagle Scouts. The keynote speaker at the one I attended was John Glenn. Each of the boys got to go up and shake his hand. The Boy Scouts played a pretty large part in my life during this period. It's hard to imagine that everything in this video took place in less than 5 short years.